And we start tonight with the startling revelations from the Ghana AIDS Commission. And the Commission says tonight that there are more than 100,000 persons carrying HIV but are unaware and spreading it across the country. Now, this is according to the Director General of the Commission, who says the Commission has mounted an aggressive search for these persons to bring them under treatment. He made the revelations in an interview with Joy News' head of the health desk, Fred Smith, shortly after announcing the country's latest HIV figures at a news conference in Accra. We'll bring you that interview shortly. But first, though, Fred Smith joins me in the studio with more on this development. Let's start, Fred, from the general situation as captured in the 2022 national and sub-national HIV estimates and projections.
Well, Evans, let's start from the general situation as captured in the 2022 national and sub-national HIV estimates and projections. And here they indicate that the data released is for the period 2022 and not for 2023. It is, however, the very latest we have on this situation. They found that nearly 16,000 persons contracted the virus in Ghana, and that's a decline if you compare that to events in 2021. But the Commission is happy about that. I will explain to you when we hear from the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission.
In 2022, the adult HIV prevalence was 1.66%, and the number of people living with HIV in the country was about 355,000, made up of 115,235 males and 239,692 females, which suggests that females are about twice the number of male HIV population in the country. And that underscores an important vulnerability of females that we all have to avert our minds to. In terms of age disaggregation, children aged 0 to 14 who principally may have contracted HIV through vertical transmission were about 24,712. And adults, that is age 15 years and above, being 330,215.
Fred, from what I understand from this data, the HIV population in Ghana has inched up, but the Commission is not bothered by that, is it?
Yeah, they're actually happy about this because they explain that a lot more people are depending on the antiretrovirals, and it is actually becoming more effective. And so persons who had HIV a very long time ago are still alive. They are living longer than they used to do. And so we have all of these persons still around, adding to the numbers, and that's how come we have an increase in the national population.
And the more you take the HRVs, the viral load goes down, and so that then leads to less infections across the board. Let's talk about the scary figures you learned from him post the presentation. When you sat down with him, there's 100,000 number of individuals who are out there carrying the virus, but not knowing that they have it and spreading it actively.
Yeah, so the data showed, and this is also to look at those who have the virus but have not come forward to test or maybe are unaware that they have it. And according to the data they provided, nearly 100,000 persons have the virus, but they haven't been able to test or have not been to a facility to be assessed for this. And these are the persons the Commission believes are spreading the virus, and they are actually looking for them. I asked the Director General about this situation.
More than 28% of people living with HIV still do not know their HIV status because they have not tested. And
more than 28%?
Yes.
That represents what number?
That represents about 100,000 people.
100,000 people?
Yes.
You mean all of these are out there, they don't know they have HIV and may be spreading?
Exactly. That is what is happening. And of course, they are spreading it unknowingly. and that is not the best. And in fact, if someone, it's important for everyone to know their HIV status, and knowing it early, is very important, even for treatment success. If you wait till you get AIDS before you go to hospital, it will take a much longer time for you to recover in terms of boosting your immune system, for it to, regenerate and support your body. It takes longer time. And so it is important that you get tested to know your HIV status when you are strong and well.
And briefly, are you on the search for all of these 100,000 people?
Yes, we are. That is why we launched the self-test campaign 2 weeks ago, because there are people who are underserved when it comes to HIV services. Some are hard to reach, and they may not have the opportunity to get any of the services. And so bringing testing to their doorsteps, and the self-test kits are being distributed in the communities. So bringing it to their doorsteps will enable those who fear to know their status to at least start the process by testing to see whether they are reactive or non-reactive.
Fred, what's the forecast as far as this year is concerned?
Yeah, so they've started collecting data for this year already, and they anticipate that new infections will decline, but again, will have an increase in the number of persons who have HIV and AIDS in Ghana next year.
So looking at 2023 outlook, that is what we anticipate based on the 2022 data. What we anticipate the projections for 2023 might be is what you see in this slide, which shows that an estimated 357,915 HIV population would be what the numbers will be for 2023. So which means that in 2023 we expect the HIV population numbers to increase slightly, of almost about 2,000 or thereabout. And then new infections will reduce to about 13,606.
And we'll get a bit more detail also on what this means for the projection to eliminate HIV and AIDS in Ghana by 2030, from the boss of the AIDS Commission pretty shortly. But also, Fred, today, this revelation from the press briefing about young women, a number of women who are now engaged in unprotected sex, appearing to push the numbers up, especially among women.
Yes, indeed. The Director General for the Ghana AIDS Commission spent a lot of time highlighting how women have become so vulnerable to this. About twice the number of women who have, men who have HIV, we have that for women. And so if you have 100 for men, there will be 200 women who also have HIV, and that's not encouraging at all. The Director General believes that a lot of women are now having unprotected sex with multiple partners, and he thinks that this is causing an increase in the spread amongst women in Ghana.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Thankfully, he joins us on the telephone line right now. Dr. Cheme Tiahene is the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. Dr. Tiahene, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. I want to start with the 100,000 individuals currently walking about not knowing that they have HIV/AIDS and spreading it because they are simply ignorant of this. Do we know why people, and I've heard you do a lot of promotions recently, even here on the multimedia channels. Why are people still not coming forward to test and know their status?
Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, uh, many people fear to know their HIV status because they still have it at the back of their minds that when one gets HIV, it means that person is going to die by all means. And that is a fallacy because now we have treatment for HIV which actually prolongs the lives of persons living with HIV, and they can have, their normal life as given by God. And so that notion has to change. The other one is, the other reason is primarily because of stigma and discrimination related to HIV. Many people who have HIV wouldn't want others to know because they think that they would end up being stigmatized. And that prevents people from accessing testing, treatment, and care services, even though these services are widely available throughout the country. And so if we want more and more people to test, then we have to reduce stigma. We have to accept HIV as a fact of life in this country, and that it is something we all have to acknowledge and appreciate and support those who live with HIV. And the last point I would like to raise is the fact that many people may want to test, but probably their access to the service may be limited because there are certain populations due to where they live. If they live in remote areas, hard to reach areas, then it will be difficult for them to test and know their HIV status. And as you know, HIV is spread throughout this country. Every community has a person living with HIV. So it doesn't matter how remote the residence of people might be. They still could be having HIV persons living with HIV in such remote communities, and their access to testing may be limited. And so these are some of the reasons.
Of the reasons. In 100,000 people, that's a significantly huge number there. It's safe to assume from the breakdown you gave us today that majority of this number will be women?
I would suspect majority would rather be men because less number of men are testing compared to women.
Although in the general population of those with HIV/AIDS, you found out that there are twice as many women compared to men.
Yes, that is the general situation, and it's not peculiar to Ghana. It's a situation that actually reflects any generalized epidemic like ours. And so it is nothing new. But the fact also based on the data is that, majority of men living with HIV may not know their HIV status. And that is concerning. And men have to take the bold step and test for HIV.
But what you say is actually also very alarming then, because then what it means is that out of this 100,000, if the majority of them are men, then it means that those spreading this unknowingly, majority of them spreading this will be men spreading it and possibly giving it to women.
Yes.
And you say
you are correct to say that.
And I guess if a woman you're listening, be warned there, because and linked to that is your other revelation that women are now engaged in unprotected sex with multiple partners. Another headache of yours.
Yes, and I think it should be a shared headache of all Ghanaians because we know that women have biological vulnerabilities when it comes to HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. And it is the responsibility of women and their partners, to ensure that women are protected. But unfortunately, the male partners often are the ones who would even insist on not using protection, and here I mean use of condom, because they would always say that, are you suspecting I have a disease? And so you wouldn't want me to have, sex with you without use of condom. So all these, pose serious challenges to women, even when they are amenable to using condoms.
But we are sitting on a ticking time bomb here, because from everything you've analyzed now, you have more men walking about right now with HIV/AIDS that they don't know they have, and therefore spreading. And then you have more women now, as you now discovering, who are engaging in unprotected sex with multiple partners. Of course, multiple partners being men. The men, many of them who are walking about with AIDS they don't know. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yes. And there are various, practices when it comes to sex in Ghana now, because people are exposed to all kinds of media materials, and they would want to experiment. And so you have people who engage in orgy sessions. You have people who are more interested in having anal sex. For example, having a lot of alcoholic drinks or other illicit drugs before having sex, trying all kinds of things, so all these increase the risk of one getting HIV. And I believe if we all acknowledge that, yes, you want to have pleasure, yes, you want to enjoy yourself, do it in moderation and set some boundaries for yourself, because HIV is real and is still infecting people in this country. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that about 46 people get infected daily in this country. And so it is real, and people are dying of AIDS when at the time when we do not have to have people having disease progression and dying, subsequently because of AIDS-related, diseases. And so we have to, now recognize that we are all being complacent when it comes to HIV, and we need to change that that mindset and change our behaviors as well.
And where does this
more protective behaviors?
Yeah.
So that we can reduce new infections to bring it to the barest minimum.
The projection is to eradicate this by 2030. Where does this all leave us with that particular projection?
Yes.
Are we on course? Are we on course?
We have the strategies and the tools to eliminate AIDS by the year 2030. But if we continue the way, if the level of risky behaviors continue as it is today, and that we have the high levels of new infections as we are seeing today, and if we do not have the necessary resources to actually make the investment in areas where we to ensure that we are able to provide the necessary services for those who need the services, then we cannot achieve the 2030 target.
Thank you very much. And that's Dr. Tremetiahini, he's the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. So live, your news night is on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, government is tonight on a collision course with organized labor after making a massive U-turn on its earlier position to exclude pension funds from the domestic debt exchange program. Now, last night, the Finance Ministry formally asked pension funds to exchange 31 billion cedis for lower yielding bonds and take a haircut on investments. Organized labor has called an emergency meeting on the matter. We have details of that shortly, but first, listen to Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. We'll hear that from him pretty shortly. But also today, we've been hearing from organized labor on the proposal before them for them to exchange some 31 billion cedis in bonds that has already been issued by the pension funds. The organized labor, from what we understand, led by the TUC, they've called this emergency meeting on Thursday to take a united position on the matter, and that, they believe, will then set the stage for further negotiations with government. We'll hear from the union shortly, but this is Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam.
Well, government has made the offer, so they have to decide. And
but they've rejected the
settlement.
You excluded them. You exempted them.
Well, but I think you also recall that we had an MOU with Labour on which we agreed to continue to engage for an alternative option that will help in the improving on the debt sustainability. And so it's within this engagement that we think that this is the time to make that.
This is voluntary, right?
Yeah.
This is voluntary.
Yeah.
If they decide not to exchange,
we'll continue to engage. I mean, after all, some of you didn't participate in the DDEP, but many other Ghanaians sacrificed and participated, and they have contributed gallantly.
So you expect some of the pension funds,
economic recovery,
you expect some of the pension funds to take up the offer?
Economy. So we encourage them. I'll encourage them to take the offer.
Joshua Ansah is the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC, the Trade Union Congress, and joins us on the line right now. Ms. Ansah, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. You just heard the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry say, they had an agreement, but there was a provision in there to explore alternative arrangement. This is it. You agree that this is a fair deal for you to consider?
Evans.
Yes, sir.
Please, can you come again? Because I was very noisy.
Yes, I can hear you at least. If you can you hear me now?
So I've just left the room.
Can you hear me now?
And I'm finding it.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I cannot hear you back.
Is it a fair deal, what government is offering now for the pension funds to exchange 31 billion of bonds that they've already are holding and have invested with the government?
Evans, good evening and thank you for the opportunity. Evans, let me tell you, to be frank with you, this memorandum, new exchange memorandum, was launched yesterday by the Finance Minister. And what we intend doing is that we want to have a copy of the new exchange memorandum. You will study it, and finally, organized labor will take a decision or a position on that.
I understand this meeting has been scheduled for Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday. We are starting a meeting on Thursday.
Have you had any conversation with your pension funds who manage the funds on your behalf?
I think when we have the copy of the exchange memorandum, it will be part of our discussions. After we have studied it, we will have further meetings with our trustees and the corporate body so that we can have a positive position on whatever it is.
I recall very clearly when the negotiations happened, and there was a press conference. Yourself, your boss was seated with the employment minister and the finance minister, and you signed this. At the time that you were signing this, you were very clear then that this would not be entertained under any circumstance. Do you at least accept that where we are right now, the circumstances may have changed to the point where you should be considering participating in the DDEP?
Evans, I think I want to be very careful in making any statement here for now, because a whole organized labor made that decision, and they made it very frankly that they were not going to allow their pension funds to be used for this exchange program. I mean, time has elapsed, and maybe if things have now changed, if the new exchange memorandum is going to be something positive, that will be positive on the pensions earnings of members. I think you will have to study the document, look at the pros and the cons. If it is positive, why not? Why don't you have a different position on that again? But for now, as I've said, I have not studied the document, so I cannot say much on the document until Thursday when we meet. You will meet, look at it, discuss it, and also meet with our fund managers and so on and so forth. Then we can come out with a holistic position on that.
Okay, that's Joshua Ansah. He's a Deputy Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress. But where do you stand on the matter? If you're a public sector worker, do you agree? Will you be encouraging your pension funds to participate in the domestic debt exchange involving the funds themselves? 31 billion CDs on offer, as the government is hoping to exchange that for lower yielding bonds. So live here on Newsnight is on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, the Auditor General has revealed a nationwide shortage of essential medicines for treating mental health cases. In the Auditor General's 2022 report on mental health management, he indicated that the Central Medical Stores, which is responsible for supplying psychotropic drugs, has been struggling to meet the demand from psychiatric hospitals. Before we bring you details of the Auditor General's report, my colleague Hannah Dami has been exploring the challenge that many the mental health institutions in this country have been facing. Listen to Minds on the Street, a special feature that she developed.
Sometimes I feel very bad because some are very young and some too, they are not clothing well, so you feel bad about it.
It is not only about how they feel, but the pain they can also inflict on anyone they come by. In August 2022, a mentally challenged woman hit a man with stones at this particular spot. For those who stay and live around, it was a moment of reawakening. For how long are they going to tolerate or look over their shoulders when they see a mentally challenged person in their vicinity? That torturous incident lingers on the minds of many who heard it, but most especially on the minds of those who witnessed that horrific act. The thought of being attacked by a mentally challenged person is an act no one would want to experience.
Sometimes they come towards you whilst you are walking and you are a little scared, especially during the night. And when you try to, they try to follow you. It is something which is really, uncomfortable. And I feel the government should, in a way, try to put them together in one place.
That intervention was on March 2022 by the then medical director of the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Dr. Pinaman Apau. She revealed the redevelopment of the facility into a 220-bed hospital was under government's Agenda 111 program.
Updates that I got from the coordinator of the Agenda 111 project indicates that they are doing what we call technical evaluation on tenders that had been submitted.
But almost a year on, not much has happened in terms of a pull down and a facelift. Former director of the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Dr. Akwesi delving on this development.
As at the time the idea came to pull down the structures and build new ones, we had got to the point where it didn't seem fitting for a facility of our age in Ghana. All things were more or less in place, but somehow it's stalled. I'm sure it's not totally dead, that somewhere along the line we will get the funding to continue the program.
As the nation waits to see the fulfillment of the recent promise, the mentally challenged on the streets will perhaps remain, and the fears of many will also perhaps remain. I am Hannah Odami for Joy News.
Well, to make matters worse, the Auditor General is revealing tonight that there's a nationwide shortage of essential medicines for treating mental health cases. My colleague Michael Papania-Shale joins me in the studio with more from the Auditor General's report. What are we learning from this report?
So, Evans, the audit report says that at the time that they had gone there, they realized that the mental health units of the various facilities did not receive the necessary medications for treating medical health cases. It goes on to say that the central medical stores could not provide the requested quantities of psychotropic drugs to the three main psychiatric hospitals. And you know them, the Accra Psych Hospital, we have Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital, and then Pantan Hospital. Now, this shortage, the report says, led to community psychiatry nurses at municipal and district hospitals prescribing medications for patients to purchase from the open market at their own cost. Additionally, Any drug not supplied by the central medical stores and not covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme was sold at a relatively higher price than the original cost. And this is exactly what the report found.
Are there any recommendations?
Yes, so Evans, there were 2 recommendations actually gave them. It says, well, first, they should collaborate. That is, the Mental Health Authority should collaborate with the central medical stores to distribute psychotropic medications based on patient turnout at treatment facilities. And again, he asked them to collaborate with the Ministries of Finance and Health to improve procurement processes for acquiring psychotropic medicines.
Thank you very much, Papa. And we would delve a bit more into the Auditor General's report, because there's been so many revelations in there. The recent one just released. George Rafi, in the meantime, is joining me with the latest from the world of business. Hello, George. Alarming numbers from the Ghana AIDS Commission, indeed.
Interesting.
He says the Ghana AIDS Commission boss just told me a short while ago that out of the 100,000 people walking about not knowing they have HIV, but they indeed have it and spreading it knowingly, majority of that number are men. And then the reverse is also that there are now more women engaged in unprotected sex and contracting it because it's easier for a woman to get it. So this is a toxic mix. It's a ticking time bomb.
And the interesting bit is those who know that they have the disease or they have the virus, and deliberately they see it as, a punishment, and therefore they want to spread it because they feel that they've also been infected by someone who deliberately knew that he or she had that virus. And that for me is a serious thing. And for some who cannot abstain, the critical thing is about abstinence or protection, and that's a very critical thing.
You're right. What do you have in the headlines?
Well, Evans, coming up, more oil marketing firms increase prices at the pumps, a development that could influence commercial drivers to demand an adjustment in transport fares. And government justifies more than 20 billion Ghana cedis cuts in total spending for this year, insisting further cuts could hurt the economy. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay. Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, more oil marketing companies are increasing prices of petroleum products at the pumps. But what could be the impact of this on inflation and transport fares going forward? There is more in this report.
In the morning, our checks showed that only one oil marketing firm had increased the price of petroleum products at the pumps. However, a fresh round of market scan in the afternoon showed that more players have also reviewed their prices. This includes those that control more than 50% of the market. One can talk about Shell, Total Energies, market leader Goil, and Star Oil. Analysis of the numbers showed that it has gone up by more than 4% to reach 12 cedis 45 pesos per litre. The concern for many now is the possible impact of this development on prices of goods on the market, as well as transport fares. This is because this is the second time running that prices have gone up in just 2 months. There are also concerns about the margin of increase, which might have gone beyond the 10% mark that is required to trigger negotiations for transport fares to be increased. Inflation rates have gone up over the past 2 months, and there are fears that it could push inflation rate further in the coming months because of the impact of transport fares.
And that is a business desk report. Now, government has justified the more than 20 billion Ghana cedis cut in total spending for this year. It has, however, maintained that further cuts could hurt the economy badly in terms of spending in critical areas. Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah maintained that there's still some need for some sacrifice to help firmly stabilize the economy.
Can you afford to reduce anybody's salary in the public sector to its disadvantage or to let them go home? I think that would be a difficulty to do. Item number 2, you'd have to deal with statutory payments, which are matters of law, a percentage of total revenue. You've seen the pain that people have gone through when it comes to debt rationalization and how they have objected to various parts of it. Go to goods and services. My ministry's communications budget is 600,000 cedis for the whole year. Even out of that, we were given 200,000 cedis so far. So ministries, departments, and agencies will tell you that they are not receiving the goods and services allocations even as promised in the budget.
That's the reality on the ground.
That's the reality on the ground. So which area can you really cut? These are the genuine conversations that we should have as a republic.
Information Minister Kojo Opon Nkrumah. Now, government says the Bank of Ghana says it has put in place the required structures to ensure that it remains policy solvent and will be able to deliver on its primary mandate. Now, this is coming after it recorded more than 61 billion Ghana cedis notes in a negative equity position. Philip Brodotu is the Director of Research at the Bank of Ghana.
Whether the bank will continue to be policy solvent. It's an issue of policy solvency. And with policy solvency, the issue is whether we can continue to discharge our mandate of pursuing price stability and financial stability despite the negative equity. And the answer is yes, we can. So we can do that. Policy solvency requires realized revenues to cover costs and build longer-term capital reserves. But I think that is not to say that, yes, we don't need to recover. We will have to recover as we move along, but will we be policy solvent as we move on? I think, yes, we will be policy solvent. But again, we also need to recognize that we are putting in place steps and actions to ensure that we return back to positive levels.
Philippa Brodotu is Director of Research at the Bank of Ghana. President of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply, Simon Annan, has indicated that procurement industry is playing a critical role in helping government realize its industrialization agenda. He was speaking at an MOU signing ceremony between the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply and the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration.
And procurement supply chain will move Ghana from where we are to the next level. What it means is that the government procurement that we're doing, it is what we're going to use to promote the industrialization, promote the SMEs, and then ensure that there's value for money. And I have maintained that Ghana's socio-economic development agenda cannot be achieved without appreciation of the role of procurement in our national discourse.
Simon Annan is the president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply. The earnings of telecoms giant MTN continues to hit record levels. Now, this was after its half-year profit before tax reached 2.4 billion Ghana cedis, up by 26% over what it recorded for the same period last year. Total revenue for the first 6 months of this year reached 6.1 billion Ghana cedis. It have paid 2.7 billion Ghana cedis in direct and indirect taxes to the state. Well, to the stock market, it appears MTN's good run in terms of financials is impacting on its share price on the Ghana Stock Exchange. It went up by 12 pesos today to close at 1 Ghana cedi, 55 pesos at the end of trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And that's all for Business on Newsnight. Back to you, Evans. And Mr. Nsako is on today. PM Express, right?
Yes.
It's not Business Edition, but PM Express.
Yes. Yes, he's on indeed. And there's something he's been saying that's got a lot of people talking. And we've been, playing part of the interview on social media, on our many social media platforms. And it's got many people reacting. Remember that he's a former executive vice president of Unilever.
Been working in the group,
exactly.
And being on the ground and experiencing the issues when it comes to, relating to the market, production and manufacturing.
Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had made that very famous declaration that a black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
Always.
Well, he's been giving his thoughts on that as far as Ghana is concerned. Listen.
Well, I leave it to everybody to make up their mind. I do know that when he stood at the old polo grounds and he said that the black man must show to the world that he's capable of running his own affairs, I do not believe that Ghana in 2023 today fulfills that brief. If there's somebody who believes that it does, I'd like to see the person put up his hand. And I've spoken to many people. Some of them were students of that generation, some of them were young people who were working. I like to sit with much older people who have seen it all. They've seen Ghana unfold and come through. And I ask them all the time, I said, is this what you expected? And almost universally, the answer is no.
Well, he says the solution is what he calls a mindset revolution.
The youth of today are no different from the youth of any era. They too want better conditions. They want to live a better life. They want good housing. They want good food. They want good clothes. They want sanitation. They want good health. They want education, etc. They want to get married, have a family. And it is these concerns that drive people. Che Guevara himself said the revolutionary is driven by love. So this sort of empty militancy, people just go, he says a revolutionary is driven by love. It is a willingness to see society become better that drives a revolutionary, not the sort of empty wildcat orientation towards violence and so on that we've come to associate with the word. That's why Fidel Castro, people don't read the book for yourself, describe Jesus Christ as a revolutionary. So when you're talking mindset revolution and so on, which you say we will come to.
What is it, by the way? What is mindset revolution?
Amilcar Cabral and many others famously spoke about. Amilcar Cabral said the first dimension of revolution must necessarily be cultural. Because when you wake up and you say we need to improve, that is an indictment on your current circumstances. The insight into the condition calls for critical reflection and a re-examination of the circumstances that you are in. That is mindset revolution.
Well, the full interview is on PM Express at 9 p.m. It's a fascinating conversation.
We'll all be looking forward to that. But even there's a critical question about whether it's the system or what. Because listen, you meet Ghanaians outside who are managing huge institutions, the World Bank, the Chief of Staff, the Vice President of the World Bank, other institutions, financial institutions, Vice President, Citibank, Morgan Chase and all the rest. And these are the same Ghanaians who struggle to make it here, but they are doing so well outside. So is it the system?
Well, tell you what, we talked about that too. We talked about that. I asked the question, and I asked it in relation to the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo. He's lived, schooled abroad, but the consensus is that he's faced tremendous challenges. Is it that the system just makes it impossible for you to succeed? He has very interesting thoughts on that. Just stay with us at 9 p.m. on the John News channel. It's already on our social media platforms. You can watch it on YouTube in particular. Let's do sports now. And Ms. Bao is here with the very latest. Hello, Ms. Bao.
Yes, hello, Evans. Well, he's the head coach of the Black Stars, Chris Eaton, and he's been speaking a lot about the AFCON and also about some players in the Black Star squad. But first of all, on the AFCON, he has emphasized the need for Ghana to qualify for the tournament, which is to be staged in Ivory Coast come next year in January. Now, the Black Stars are chasing another appearance at the Continental Showpiece, which is just 5 months away from now. With 9 points, Ghana is in first place in Group E, Angola is in second place with 8 points, and the Central African Republic is in third place with 7 points. And Ghana will need a win or draw in their last game against Central African Republic on the September 3 to guarantee a place in Ivory Coast, which Houghton believes the team can't afford to miss out on. He's been speaking on UK-based radio station TalkSport.
We play our last game in September. We're at home to the Central African Republic. At this moment, we're top of the group, but it's quite tight. We certainly need either a win or a draw. So it's a big game for us. Ivory Coast, of course, is the host of AFCON in January, and of course we very much need to be there.
Yeah, so that's Chris Houghton, head coach of the Black Stars there. Well, he didn't end there. He also lauded Mohamed Kudus for his skill set and expressed confidence in the midfielder's ability to do well in the Premier League should he end up there at the end of the transfer window.
I think it's a player that will always show interest from clubs. He's young, he has super ability, can score a goal. He also has that flexibility. There is that question mark on what's his best position. At Ajax at the last season, he was playing predominantly on the right, left-footed, coming in field. Before that was very much as a 10. You know, he's a player that can do things on the ball, particularly when the spaces open up in the game. And he has that ability to surge in the spaces and can score goals. So no surprise, it's an interest. For me, the most important thing is that he's playing.
I listened to that interview, and part of this also he talks about Hudson-Odoi and the Arsenal's player Eddie Nketiah and his attempts to try and get them to switch allegiance and play for Ghana. And that he says he's been having conversations with them, and he's positive about that. Just that when it comes to Hudson-Odoi, he's not played as many games as he would want to. Yeah. And that's possibly what he's using to try and get him to play for Ghana. We'll hear him later on that.
We'll see if they'll be able to switch allegiance even before the AFCON in Ivory Coast in January next year. That's all for sports. And of course, just have to mention that Sadio Mane has completed his move to Saudi Arabia. He'll be playing.
Just how much? Just you don't have that amount.
Well, it's in the region of 40 million. That's what they paid Bayern Munich for him. As far as his own salary is concerned, it's quite huge. It's quite heavy. Huge pocket money. He's been playing with Cristiano Ronaldo at Al Nassr, so expect some excitement in the Saudi League come next season. Sports was brought to you by Pepsodent Herbal and Chaco. Pepsodent, every smile matters.
Well, I should be trying to play football and head to one of those money leagues, that's what they call it, in Saudi Arabia or somewhere else, just to make some good money. So listen to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. The minority in Parliament, particularly on the Works and Housing Committee, say government is acting illegally by going ahead to launch the National Affordable Housing Programme despite financing agreement still unapproved and awaiting parliamentary consideration. Now, addressing journalists in Parliament today, the former Deputy Works and Housing Minister Samson Ahi described the conduct of government as illegal. Well, today, the government went ahead and cut sword for the $550 million project that will build 14,000 units at Pokwase and Kumasi to be constructed by private players and also in partnership with the public. Now, project consultant Frank Taki says the project has enormous financial benefits for the enclave.
This project alone in Pokwase, in terms of direct labor on site, will generate about 250,000 jobs. Then you have the indirect jobs on site, and then you have the income earning opportunities through the informal sector that is still not accountable. Secondly, when the estate is completed, the economic generation impact is huge, not only within this estate but beyond.
Well, President Akufo-Addo cut the sword and launched the project and says this will reduce the housing deficit.
The initiative marks a positive collaboration between government and the private sector as it adopts a different approach from previous government housing projects, where government funded both essential infrastructure and the housing units. With this approach, government will provide the land and other essential infrastructure, whilst private sector developers take the responsibility.
And that's the President Akufo-Addo there. Now, former Food and Agriculture Minister Dr. Owusu Efiri-Akoto says a level of despondency in the grassroots of the governing New Patriotic Party requires a deep-rooted loyalist to restore hope and break the 8. The MPP will hold the Super Delegates Congress on August 26th to select 5 aspirants for the November Congress as a selective flag bearer. Now, ahead of the polls, Dr. Efiri-Akoto says he has identified the problem. He has a solution to fix it. He is featured in our series, part of our build-up to the Super Delegates Congress.
According to Dr. Owusu Efiri-Akoto, only a strong, formidable and united front can guarantee electoral victory in the 2024 general elections for the MPP. But he says the current state of the MPP epitomizes despondency and hopelessness due to the neglect of the grassroots.
2 things. 1 is discipline. 2 is their situation. Because everywhere you go, everywhere you go. And in my job, for the 6 years, in 5 of those 6 years, I go around the country. I'm not somebody who sits in the air conditioning in Accra. And I have the opportunity to meet farmers. A lot of them are party people. And they will tell you, apart from what you've come to discuss about the work on the farm and so on and so forth, they complain. Apart from the conflicts are due to the fact that discipline in the party is not enough. So for me, we need to fix this party in order that we can sustain ourselves in power come 7 December 2024. And until that, we are in very serious problem.
He's assuring delegates of the party that he will work assiduously to ensure that their welfare is improved when voted to bear the flag of the UP tradition.
We have a lot of contracts. Government is the biggest business giver in this country. And if the military can have companies to do business, why can't political parties? The ANC in South Africa owns mines, it owns manufacturing concerns, it owns insurance companies and so on. You have to be more entrepreneurial. That's what I'm saying. As a key to all these things about Yenyafi and all that. You need to, the party as a body should have some business edge to raise income for themselves rather than expect government or anybody to come and finance them.
For 6 years, Dr. Owusu Afriyie-Akoto led the agricultural revolution under the Planting for Food and Jobs. According to him, Ghana will need a new innovative business model to do things differently if the country is to succeed in diversifying its agriculture. The model, he said, should be driven by government structure, supply chain logistics and market access, support for big data and technology for evidence-based decision-making, research and development. But above all, he said a political will to execute this